Hello. Right, formulas and rearranging. First thing we need to do is a bit of language. When we say the subject of the formula, quite a common little statement, what we mean is this. So in this case, C is our subject because C equals everything else. Okay? Another one might be y equals mx plus c. In this case, y is the subject of our formula. Right, we can do that with real life things. So you know that density equals mass over volume. Okay, these are all useful and allow us to calculate things, but sometimes we know that density is mass over volume, but we don't want that. What we want is mass, or we want volume. And that is what this video is going to help you deal with, rearranging these formulas. So, how are we going to do that? Let us look at our starting formula here. C equals 2 pi r. We want to get r. At the moment, r is timesed by 2 pi. So we want to do the opposite of timesing by 2 pi, which is dividing by 2 pi. So, that's what we're doing. Divide by 2 pi. Do it to both sides. This side, we get c divided by 2 pi. This side, we have 2 pi on top, 2 pi on bottom, they cancel, and so r equals c over 2 pi. Now this is the fundamental of what we're going to do. Every time, in order to get r, we're going to do the opposite. So, slightly more complicated one, y equals mx plus c. Our first step is we're going to get all the x terms on one side and everything that isn't an x term on the other side. So we've got only one x term, this mx. We have this plus c, we want to put that on the other side, so we're going to take it away. And we get y minus c equals mx. Now, we've only got x terms on one side and non-x terms on the other, so we divide whatever we're timesing by x, in this case m, and we get y minus c over m equals x. Okay? And there we go. So, this is how we're doing it, and we're beginning to build up our setup to doing this now. So, now, how about if we have more than one x value? Like written down here, y equals ax plus 3x. Alright, well, I'll write that down. Y equals ax plus 3x. Well, they've both got an x term. All the x terms are on one side, all the non-x terms are on the other, but we have two different terms. So the very first thing we've got to do is factorize x out of this. So this is the same as x times a plus 3. Okay? Now, we can just divide by a plus 3, because that is what we're timesing by x, and that will leave us x on its own. So we get y over a plus 3 equals x. We have rearranged our formula to get a equals. Okay. So that's how we deal with problems like that. Now, we could have had something a little bit more complicated. So we could have had 2y plus 3x equals ax. Right? But I don't want a because it just used a, so I'm going to use dx. Okay. Now, I want you to get x equals in this case, so I'm going to get all the x terms to one side, all the non-x terms to the other side, so I'm going to take 3x away from both sides, and I'll get 2y equals dx minus 3x. Now, one side's got only terms times by x, the other side's got only terms that don't have x. In the side that has the terms times by x, I'm going to factorize x out, x times d minus 3, that still equals 2y. Then I'm going to divide by d minus 3 to get x on its own. 2y over d minus 3 equals x. Done. Our next problem is fractions. So, how do we deal with fraction problems? Well, we don't like having that x on the bottom. Okay? We want to get x equals, in this case again, so y equals 3 over 2 plus x. So very first thing we're going to do is times the x's off the bottom. Y times everything on the bottom there, 2 plus x. The only way to get it off was to times everything by it. Now we're going to times out that bracket we got on the left. 2y plus xy equals 3. Now all we've got are individual terms, and we want to get x on one side, everything with x is on one side, and everything without x is on the other side. So we take two y's from both sides, and we get xy equals 3 minus 2y. And now what we have times by the x is y, so we divide everything by y. So x equals 3 minus 2y all over y. Now you could have written that out as 3 over y minus 2 by splitting the fraction up into two separate fractions and deleting and cancelling the y in the second fraction. That's not really the aim of this video. I just wanted to show you that was possible in case you come out with it in that way. Okay, now we can deal with this whenever we have fractions. So if you've got a fraction, the thing you're looking for, in our case x, is on the bottom of your fraction, you always have to times it up. That's one of the very first things you've got to do, because your aim is to be able to take all the terms that have an x term, put them on one side, and all the terms without an x term, put them on the other side. Okay? We can't do that until we dealt with the fraction. Another type of complication that we can have are squareds and square roots. So let's have a look at this square root. Y equals the square root of x plus 5. We cannot play with anything inside that square root. Okay? Not until we've dealt with the square root. So what is the opposite of square rooting something? Squaring it. So the only way of getting rid of the square root is to square. So I square both sides, and I get y squared equals x plus 5. Okay, I want x terms on one, anything about x on the other, so I take 5 from both sides, and I get y squared minus 5 equals x. Oh, there we go, done it. Come with the other style of problem. Y equals 3x squared minus 2. Okay, so if you ever have something like this, we're going to put everything that's not an x squared onto the other side, and then we'll deal with the squared. So you add 2, very first thing, y plus 2 equals 3x squared. Then we divide by 3, y plus 2 over 3 equals x squared. The opposite of squaring is square rooting. So x equals the square root of y plus 2 over 3. Okay, and you'll notice here it's very similar to when we just had the x's. We dealt with x squared equals instead, and then we dealt with that squared term. So that was the very last thing. So let us go through the general situation. This problem looks quite hard, but trust me, it's not. So first things first, we want to get x equals, and we've got some x's on the bottom of fractions. We don't want that, so we're going to times everything by 3 minus x squared. So the left hand side is going to be y times 3 minus x squared, and the left hand side, sorry, that was the left hand side, the right hand side becomes just 2x squared plus 5. Okay, now we're going to times this bracket out. We want to get access to those x squareds. We have 3y minus x squared y equals 2x squared plus 5. We want to get all the x squared terms on the same side and everything that doesn't have an x squared term on the other side. So we're going to add x squared y and take 5. So I'm going to add x squared y first. 3y equals 2x squared plus 5 plus x squared y. Now I'm going to take 5. 3y minus 5 equals 2x squared plus x squared y. Everything on the right hand side here has an x squared in it. Therefore, we can factorise that out of the bracket. 3y minus 5 equals x squared, 2 plus y. Now, we don't want to have that 2 plus y on the right hand side. We want to only have x squared. So we divide by 2 plus y. And we get 3y minus 5 over 2 plus y. So we have successfully got to x squared, and from x squared, the step to get to x is to square root both sides. So x equals the square root of 3y minus 5 over 2 plus y. And there we go. That's all we've got to do, these sort of things. So start off by getting the x's. Get x's off bottom. Okay, so if you're trying to get x equals, we don't want any x's on the bottom of our fractions. Then our second big step is to get all x terms to the same side. Right, get all your non-x terms to the other side. And then solve for x. Now this last bit is where we kind of have to split, because either here solving for x was taking the x squared out, right? And then we had a 2 plus y, which we divided by it, then we had to square root, okay? Earlier on, when we weren't dealing with, when we were dealing with the roots, we did that first, but when we were dealing with the simpler problems, like this, right? All we had to do, we got the x terms on one side and non-x terms on the other, and we just divided by y, because your aim every time is to get x equals. So something else we can actually add to the first step is get x off bottom, or get x out of the square root. We don't want those. Get the x's on the same side, get the non-x terms to the other side, solve for x. So by division, or multiplication if it was a different style of question. Multiplication and square rooting. These problems are going to come up a lot in GCSE, and you're going to really want to be able to deal with this. So this is something that if you're finding hard, you're going to put a little bit extra time into to really get your head around, because a lot of stuff later on requires you to be able to do this. Good luck and happy learning.